Well, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you happen to be in the world. And happy Q&A Friday and happy Valentine's Day Friday to each and every one of you. Whether you have a Valentine or not, doesn't matter. Celebrate because you know what? It's awesome. All right. So, welcome to the Daily Huddle. My name is Mike Hathcote. We're going to talk about some voiceover stuff to kind of help you get a little further down the road on your voiceover journey. Yeah, today is all about your questions. So drop a question into the chat and also chime in on the chat just to let me know where you're watching or listening from. I'll do some shout outs here as we always do. Also, like and subscribe. Hit those buttons and even the notification button if you want to get notifications about this. And like I said, we do this every weekday morning at 9 a.m. Pacific time. So I'm glad you're here. Um, what should we start with today? You know what? Let's just jump into the questions. Like I said, I don't really have much of a lesson or anything this morning, but let's just jump into the questions, see what you got, and get this day going. Mark says, Happy Friday from Montreal. There's Sean. Happy Friday from Longview. Nancy in Yankton, South Dakota. There's JJ. Happy Valentine's Day from Montrose, Minnesota. Hope your day is filled with joy and VO. It is. I was actually shortlisted the other day for a spot and it looks like I won it. I got the notification this morning, so I got that one. That's what I'm going to start with today. And of course, I'll stream that onto the Facebook group and the blueprint. Every job that I have, as long as it's not a um, non-disclosure agreement, I stream live on the Facebook group, and then you can either watch it live or you can watch the replay, and it just stays in the feed so people can go back and kinda see what I'm doing, kinda be like a fly on the wall here. Um, and yeah, tonight we are actually going my wife and I are actually going out to see, Brian Regan. He's one of our favorite comics. We go to see a lot of live comedy, and, seen him a bunch, and he just happens to be playing tonight, so we're gonna go see him. Should be fun. Okay, let's see. Hello from Hamilton, Ontario. Hello, David. Ethan says TGIF from snowy Toronto, Ontario. Yeah, and I've mentioned it before. I like Fridays. It's nice to kind of have a little break, but I'm not one of those people who like hates Mondays. And I love Mondays because I did come in here and do my thing. Sandra says hello from London, Ontario. There's John. Happy Friday from Denver. Rick, hello from Minneapolis. There's Becky. Happy Friday from the Mitten. Burr. I'm so ready for summer. I had that same conversation with my wife the other day. I was like, I'm really ready for summer because we've been, we get spoiled. Cold here is in the 50s and it's been pretty cold. And so I was like, man, I'm ready for summer. She was like, bite your tongue because come, August when it's 120 outside, you're going to be hating that. So yeah, she's probably right. That is the cover charge for living here the rest of the year. The summer times here are brutal. And don't say it's a dry heat because, yeah, it is, but so is an oven. I was born and raised in Knoxville, Tennessee, lived in Alabama for some time, so I know what humidity's like. And out here, different. It's a different ball game. Oh, let's see. There's Sarah. Hello from Kentucky. Christopher from St. Joseph, Michigan. Lucius from Minnesota. We got quite a few Minnesotans on here usually, so that's pretty cool. See a little pattern there, a trend. Wayne says, from Port Orchard, Washington. Kirk says, howdy from Greenville, South Carolina. What are typical turnaround times for deadlines for most VO jobs? Typically flexible. Excellent question, Kirk. Okay. So, how do I answer this? Okay. So, when it comes to auditions, there's always a deadline. It's usually a couple of days, unless there's a rush. It's a rush deal. I get rush jobs or rush auditions a lot of times from some of my agents where they're like, this is due later today. It's a rush job. But as far as the actual work, I guess the best answer to that would be ASAP. Um, you know, some people will specify if there's a timeline on when they need it back. My standard kind of rule of thumb is 24 to 48 hours, unless it's some gigantic, e-learning or something like that that's gonna take a big chunk of time. But my philosophy is under promise and over deliver. Meaning, if you think you can get it done today, tell them tomorrow. And then if you get it to them today, who looks like the rock star? You do. So under promise, over deliver, and they'll be pleasantly surprised, and hopefully they'll keep coming back because especially if you deliver good quality work and you get it to them quickly, that's a win-win. So, you know, there's really not a standard, but as soon as possible without rushing. Lucia says, "What's your opinion on music beds with audiobooks consisting of short stories?" Well, since I'm not a big audiobook guy, um, I don't have much of an opinion on that. I have heard some audiobooks that do have music beds, like in between chapters or whatever. Like when one chapter is kind of ending, they kind of fade in a little music bed and then switch over to the next chapter and then it fades out. I've heard stuff like that. But I've not heard as far as like, short stories and have music beds throughout the whole thing. If that's a trend, I'm not aware of it. But anything that kind of keeps the attention of the listener is fine, and that's what you should do. That'll all be up to the rights holder, whether or not they want to do that. If they require that, then of course you can charge extra for that because that's going to cost you, it's going to take you extra time to do that. So I'm always about things that can actually make you more money. So if that's the case, then do it. Marlene says, "Good morning from Fresno, California. Hey, Mike, are we going to get info about the skate dock? Where and when can we see it? Break a lip." Thank you, Marlene. And yes, the skateboarding, for those of you who don't know that I'm working on a skateboarding documentary from my hometown in Knoxville, and it's done. Well, the rough cut is done. In fact, I'm having some friends over tomorrow night to kind of screen the first iteration of it. We're probably shooting for Go Skateboarding Day, which is June 21st, and it will be in Knoxville. The theatrical release will be in Knoxville, and so that's a little ways away, I know, but it'll be available outside the theaters by digital download, or I may even try to get it on streaming. But much more to come on that as we get closer. But thank you for asking. My wife gets on top of me all the time about, well, I should rephrase that. She gets on to me. She gets on to me about not being able to sit still, and not be able to relax. I've always gotta have something going on, whether it's woodworking stuff or, documentary stuff or working projects around the house or whatever. I can't sit still. Maybe I'm ADHD, who knows? All right, jumping back down here. Ooh, gosh, this thing moves so fast. There's Denise. Hi from LI. Carrie says, "Happy Friday from Michigan." Tim, Austin, Texas. "What does a typical day in the life of Mike look like?" Well, you're looking at it. Um, I'm in here most days from, I probably sit down in this chair at about 8:30, 8:45, and then just kinda get the day going, check my to-do list, and I'm probably in here off and on most of the day until about 4 or 5 in the afternoon. Sometimes I'll go on a bike ride, sometimes I'll work out, sometimes I'll hop in the sauna, sometimes I'll go skateboarding depending on the weather. So yeah, and then rinse and repeat. That's what I do. Random guy on TV. "Hello from Bosnia." Denise says, "Congrats, Mike. What a way to start your day." Well, thank you. Yeah, it's nice to wake up to a one audition. And that's one of the great things about this job. After a while, I remember Bill used to call it escape velocity, meaning that once you get your marketing really humming and you start to kind of add multiple clients, repeat clients, you break free of Earth's atmosphere. That's escape velocity. where you're not having to try so hard to get work. The work is just coming in. So, like, every morning, I look forward to checking my email. In fact, that's the first thing I do when I wake up. I reach over and grab my phone, which I know you're not supposed to do immediately, but I do it. First thing I do is check my email to see what's in the inbox. And I wake up pretty much every morning with work in the inbox. So that's a great way to wake up. But after a while, you start to get to that level where you have broken free from that grind of marketing, marketing, marketing. You still need to do marketing. I'm not saying you don't, you should stop. But after a while, you start to just get those jobs are just coming in, and that's a good place to be. Christopher says, "I've got my noise floor down to about minus 58 decibels. Do the last 2 dB make enough difference for me to keep working on this?" Nah, that's pretty close because depending on what DAW you're using, Christopher, you can use a little plug-in to kind of get rid of those last couple of dB, those pesky ones that are putting you just a little bit above 60. Um, yeah, that's totally fine. I mean, if you're naturally and organically down at minus 58, you're good, man. Just put that little bit of NS1 on there, or maybe that little bit of denoise if you're using, Adobe Audition that's built in, and that will just take care of that little that rest. Corey says, "TGIF from Whitehall, Wisconsin." There's Joe Nichols, "Good morning. Where do you go to pay my voiceover blueprint?" It should still be in the, I know you're on the monthly, or is it the 3 pay? I think you're on the 3 pay, Joe, so yeah, it should be on um that same thing, that same pay page that we sent you to begin with, but shoot an email to training@thevoiceoverblueprint.com, and Kayla will take care of your renewal for you. She'll send you the right stuff if you don't already have it. So, training@thevoiceoverblueprint.com. Gosh, thing jumped on me again. Dang it. Voice 156, good morning from Holland. And there's Lucius, Midwestern rep. Sean says, "Dry heat just means you're dried out and combust more thoroughly." Yeah, that's pretty much it. Pretty much it. You know that feeling, or when you open your preheated oven and that blast hits you in the face? That's what it's like when you just step outside in the summertime here. Dale says, "Hey, Mike, Dale in the nippy UK. When asked for rates for jobs, in your opinion, is it best to work by online rate guides like GVAA for the US, or is it best to charge what you want to charge?" Well, that's a good question. And that's something that comes up a lot, actually. The best answer I have is you do you. You do you, boo boo. You do you. So basically, what that means is I tell people to start with the GVAA rates. Now, that is mainly for the US, but it's still a good starting point. You can still use the GVAA rates if you're international. Just figure out what the conversion rate is. But those rates have been poured over for years, and kind of, I don't even know what the word is. They've been built and researched for years and years by talking to, you know, talent and agents and managers and buyers and recording engineers and all the people kind of in the know to kind of come up with those rates. So I usually tell people to start there, adjust as necessary. Those aren't in stone. You can use those to kind of get you started and then kind of fudge them a little bit. But really, when it comes down to it, you'll charge, people are going to pay what they're willing to pay. It may be less than that, it may be more than that, but, always be flexible, right? To a point. You don't wanna undersell yourself, but always be ready to negotiate. In fact, that's what I always tell people. When I send someone my rate sheet, I always preface it by saying, "Here's my rate sheet. These are a jumping off point. Always happy to work with you on the rates." Right? So that means they know that you are flexible. Good question, though. Voice 156 says, question, how many auditions do you send out in a day? Ballpark figure. However many I get. Some days I won't get any. Well, let's see. I'd say I usually get at least one a day, but I mean, I send all that come in. So, those are the ones when I say auditions, I mean coming in from my agents. Um, I don't necessarily spend a lot of time going on to like Fiverr and Upwork and stuff like that and doing, auditions or applying for jobs. I'm at the point on those platforms where most of those job requests just come in. Like they send, I don't have to go and use connects and stuff on Upwork. They just come in. And so I'd say probably ballpark figure 4 or 5 a day auditions. Wayne says, on your over the shoulder feed, it looks like your gain has your waveform set between -6 to -9. Yes, and that is kind of a ballpark where you wanna kinda be. When you're speaking at your normal speaking voice, not raising, not doing an over the top yelling read and not really soft, but just your normal speaking voice, kinda like what I'm talking now. You want your waveform to kinda peak at between, in the -6, 9, and -9 area, right? You're going to normalize that to -3 when you're done with your read and you do your processing, but that's kinda where you're shooting for just as your gain. So just keep that in mind. Obviously, that has a lot to do with your mic proximity and all that kinda stuff, but between 6 and 9 is kinda where you wanna shoot. JJ says, in the book I'm doing, there's areas where the listener is supposed to fill in the blank. All I can do is narrate, fill in the blank. Is there any other choice? No answer from the author. Ugh. Yeah, I was going to say ask the author, but that's a weird one. I think you're doing just fine with that. Just fill in the blank. Because, and here's the thing, once again, when the listener, the author, the rights holder listens back, and they hear that, they're gonna tell you whether or not that's good or not, and they'll tell you to change it if you need to change it. That is kinda weird, though. Ooh, good question. Robert says, "When just starting out, can you leap straight into auditioning before setting up profile pages, show reels, etcetera?" I would say the only place where you should do that mm, this is kind of a tricky one. The only place that you should do that at this point is ACX. And this is assuming, and I'm assuming that you already have your space built, your recording space built and treated and checked by an engineer to make sure that it's on point. If that's all locked in, then you could probably do some auditions as long as you can deliver if you actually get the job, right? Um, Same goes for demos. I always tell people I could literally bring someone in off the street right now, and we could come up with a pretty good demo for them to go out and sell, because all I have to say is, "Say it like this, say it like this, say it like that, say it like that," right? Repeat after me, and we would get a pretty good demo. The question, though, is, can you replicate that performance and that sound quality over and over again if you get work based on that demo, right? Somebody hears your demo and they're like, "Wow, this guy's awesome." If you can't bring the heat every time, that's where you're gonna run into issues, which is why most people I work with, we don't just jump right into a demo. We wanna make sure that you've got the acting and the performance chops before you actually record, because you need to be able to deliver that same performance every time based on the strength of your demo. So hopefully that makes sense. But like I said, if you've got your space built out and you wanna do some auditions on some platforms, go for it as long as you can deliver that same performance. Excellent question, though. Thank you. Becky says, "What does your typical day look like? I realize your typical has changed drastically recently, but as far as your recording." Well, I just kind of mentioned it before. It's funny that 2 people asked that pretty close together, but yeah, I mean, if I'm not actively recording, a job that has come in, which there are several each day, then I'm either marketing or, of course, lately I'm working on blueprint stuff since Bill has handed this over. But yeah, I stay pretty much in this booth doing some VO related something most every day, all day. It does take a little extra time to do the live streaming to the Facebook group when I'm working and that kind of thing, and, that's not a big deal. It takes a few extra minutes a day, but, most of the time, though, I'm planted right here and working away. Wally says, "A great V-Day and a wonderful VO world to all the VOBP family." Thank you, buddy. Um, I'm so grateful I can catch this later when I'm on the road. Annapolis, Maryland. Yeah. If you're driving or, traveling somewhere, it's always nice to be able to just kind of listen in. Oh, it jumped on me again. Dang it. Let's see. Jason says, "Good morning from Kearney, Nebraska." Voiceover Joe says, "Holy crap, thought it was only me, and I found out late in life that I am indeed ADHD." It could be, man. Nobody in my family so far has been diagnosed as that, but it very well could be. It is very hard for me to sit still. I've got to have something going on and, have my fingers and stuff all over the place. Dennis says, "By the way, hello from Illinois." Well, hello. And Joe also says, "Happy Friday from Denton, America." JJ, I'm gonna leave that one alone. I'm not gonna try to go back to that comment. Sorry. Johnny says, "Greetings from a day at the zoo in overcast Florida." That's cool. I, I can't remember the last time I went to the zoo. Maybe I need to head back there while the weather's still nice before it does get to 120 degrees. Voice 156 says, "Do you use presets before recording, and do those affect live sessions with Source Connect?" No, I know a lot of people use presets, that basically change your input on the input, but I do all of my effects and everything after the fact. So what goes in is 100% natural, and I only tweak what needs to be tweaked on the output. Clemens says, "Hello from Germany again." Well, hello. Guten Tag. Jason says, "I have a customer who wants to do a royalty share and pay a little up front. I'm not sure what to charge her per finished hour for her right now, but I want it to be fair. Any thoughts?" Check the GVAA on that, Jason. Once again, I'm not a heavy audiobook guy, but check the GVAA on that and see what they're saying on there, and then kind of go from there. Just use that as your starting point, and it's a negotiation. If the first number you give them isn't right, or they don't like it, then they'll come back with something that they feel better about. Christopher says, "For clarification, -58 is with plugins." Oh, okay. Does that change your answer? I'm trying to decide how much work to put into a DIY booth solution, as I'm not ready to drop a grand just yet. Yeah. So if that -58 is with plugins, you're probably okay. You're probably okay. Um, but the thing about plugins is they're adjustable. So, unless you've maxed them out, most of the plugins, the noise reduction plugins, just have a slider that go from 0 to 100. And, unless you've got them pegged out at 100 and it's still there, you've still got some wiggle room there. So maybe just bump them up a little bit more and see if you can't get that 58 down there. But really, 58 it's close enough. It really is. I don't think people are gonna hear the difference. Sarah says, "You mentioned hiring a dialect coach to lose your Southern accent. Do you think that is always necessary when starting out in VO?" Well, it depends on your accent. I mean, if you do have some sort of regional accent or dialect, yes, I do think I think it's worth it. Um, my Southern accent was pretty bad, and, as I mentioned before on one of the other calls or one of the other, huddles, most of the US market is gonna want something called a neutral American accent, meaning they can't tell where you're from. So if you sound, you know, Southern, you sound New York, Boston, Texas, you name the place, then it might be worth it just to go get those dialed in a little bit. Now, I have also seen plenty of YouTube videos on how to lose a certain kind of accent. So you may just be able to do that on your own and just really work at it. Random Guy on TV says, "What are some estimate budgets bigger YouTube channels give for VOs? I'm sure it's different from client to client, but some estimate that we could expect would be appreciated." Oh, okay. That's a those YouTube channels, they are notoriously cheap. Um, I mean, I've seen people take jobs, like 1,000 words for 10 bucks and stuff like that. That is just, oh, that hurts my heart. It hurts my heart. I really they're all over the place, and I don't do those, so I couldn't tell you. I know that you obviously wanna try to get as much as you can, and some of them, if they're bigger channels, they may have bigger budgets, but, I'm sorry, I don't have, like, an actual number on those, but I do know that they are notoriously cheap, and a lot of people kinda get roped into doing those when they first start because they figure work is work, but that's just those are just slave wages, in my opinion. They're just not worth it. They'll promise daily work, "Well, you'll get one every day and multiples a day," or whatever, but still, I mean, you gotta balance that and, what is your time worth? Remember the 3 T's when you're negotiating and when you're justifying your rates. The 3 T's, I call them: your time, your training, and your talent. They're not just paying you for the time you're in the seat. They're paying for all the training that you've done and your talent and obviously your time, but factor all that in when you're pricing yourself, right? So, I'm sorry I don't have a better answer on that one. There's Doug from Greensboro, North Carolina. Kathleen says, "I grew up in Phoenix. Yes, I remember the, I just opened the oven door feeling." Yep, that's what it's like. There's Ken from Woodstock, Georgia. Wayne says, "I run a floor about -55 with Adobe, then I apply the rack that Rob provided, and I'm down to about -70." Yeah, I think what, who was it? I think what Christopher was asking was after running all of his plugins and rack and everything, he's still at -55, so that's where you're kinda, on the fence, but like I said, 58, you're okay. Denise says, "Just received a payment for the first job I did for the new client last month. Would you email thank you for the payment and then ask if they can share the final project?" Yes, yes, yes to both of those. Um, here's a little quick, tip for you. Always ask for the final version if they have it, the final video or whatever it is you read for, because they could go away tomorrow for some reason. If they post it onto a YouTube channel that they've got or whatever, go and get it, download it, because that YouTube channel could vanish next week, and that job will vanish with it. So always download it from YouTube, just get some downloadable or get a downloader plugin, download it from YouTube and save it so that you can not only just have it for later, but also use it for sharing on social media, put it on your website, whatever you're gonna do with it, but always get it from wherever you can and save it because you never know when that company may just vanish. Ken says, "Hi, Mike. Can you share your opinion recording 11 Labs 3-hour sampling for your own voice clone?" Yeah. So gotta kinda tread lightly when it comes to AI, but yeah, I mean, if I coulda used that when I had COVID a few weeks ago. Those of you who remember what I sounded like, it was rough. I could have used a clone of my voice that day, or that well, actually, it was more like 2 weeks because I lost a lot of work. I had to just turn down people who came to me and asked me to work because my voice was not there, and I did have a couple of regular clients who asked me to do pickups for previous jobs that I had done, and of course, I couldn't match it. And they did use 11 Labs to actually do the cloning and plugged in my voice, which was weird, but they got deadlines, right? They got to do their thing. And so when I listened back to one of them, he sent me the final version of the one that he used. It was just a couple of lines that he had to plug in there. And of course, I could tell 100% that it wasn't me, but I guess the end client couldn't tell. So I guess that's all that matters. But you know, it's up to you. I know you have to pay to keep that up. It's like a monthly thing if you wanna try to do that. I could have used it, so, in retrospect, maybe it's a good idea just to have it as a fail safe, but, that would be a your call thing. It's like I said, it's a slippery slope when it comes to AI. Robert says, "How many lines or pages of an audiobook would you record in one take?" Excellent question. Okay. Even though I'm not a big audiobook guy now, I have done several, and I definitely noticed that when I would try to sit down and just power through and try to get done, I noticed that my energy levels would dissipate. They would go down. When I played back, I could hear my energy being just sucked out. So, my answer to that would be just take lots of breaks, whether it's a page sounds right. Once you finish a full page worth, break for a second, get up, walk around, just hit the reset button, sit back down and get back into it. Don't just try to go, I'm going to do this whole chapter in one sitting. That's going to be a problem. Audiobooks you have to be built for audiobooks. It's a lot of work and it's for not a lot of great money. Unless you just really get a good payout and maybe one that's if you're doing royalty share, one that really takes off and does well. But you have to have a certain constitution to be able to do audiobooks regularly because it's a slog. It really is. But there are people who do really well, that's all they do is audiobooks. Sean Pratt, who are some others that anyway, there's a lot out there. I can't off the top of my head think of them, but there are lots. Sandra says, "Happy Friday and happy Valentine's Day from DFW." Oh, Ken says, "Did you get paid?" Yeah, of course I got paid. They, luckily the pickups well, I got paid for the original job, and I assume you're talking about the one where they had to use AI. It was just a couple of lines. So, it was a larger project where they just changed a couple of the lines. So, I had already been paid for the original project, and it was just changing a couple of lines. So, I didn't get paid extra, if that's what you're asking. I didn't get paid just for those lines, because they were so small, but they needed them. But I did get paid for the overall job. Okay, guys, any other questions before we hop out of here? Like I said, I do have a Good Friday lined up today, so I'm going to get started on that. Random guy on VO says, "What's the Facebook group you post your live work on?" That is our private voiceover blueprint Facebook group. Only people in the blueprint can actually access that group. So it's just one of the perks, one of the many perks of being in the voiceover blueprint. And if you want more information about that, you can drop down in the chat, or I'm sorry, in the description and learn more about that. And yeah, every job I do, and then of course you can post questions and post demos and reads and get feedback. And we've got a lot of the audio engineers in there and stuff like that can answer all kinds of different questions. We've got Fiverr experts, Upwork experts, you name it, all in that Facebook group. Wayne says, I've always lived in Washington State. At age 55, in August, I crossed the Rockies for the first time. When I stopped in Ohio, I experienced humidity for the first. I thought, oh my God, what am I doing here? Yeah, humidity can be rough. Well, that Ohio's nothing, man. Head down to Florida or Alabama or Georgia. That ain't nothing compared to down there. Robert says, any tips for swapping between characters in an audiobook? The only tips that I have, and I don't usually, if I do an audiobook, I don't do fiction. So I don't, because I'm not good at it. I'm not good at doing separating character dialogue. But the only tips that I can imagine is you don't have to completely change your voice. As long as you just change the pitch of your voice just a little bit, that's enough to separate the dialogue, just so that they know that someone else is talking. And this is mainly based on just other books that I've read or listened to. Because I don't do those myself. I only do nonfiction books when I do them, and it's very rare that I even do them. The only time I really do them these days is if they land in my lap or if I'm doing my own book, which ding, 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 I'm writing a book and I'll be recording that obviously. So that'll be the next book that I actually record, but that'll be coming out pretty soon. I'll let you know about that. JJ says, have a great time at the comedy show tonight, Mike. Thank you, JJ. I appreciate it. There's Alexis from Hi from DFW. Lots of people from DFW these days. Alexis also asked, how many agents do you have and what do they do and how do they help? Okay, good question. I have 5 agents, but don't rely on your agents to get you work. They do supply a very good, steady stream of auditions, and that's what they do for you. Somebody asked earlier how many auditions I do in a day, the 4 and 5 or whatever. Those are usually from agents. So, and the one that I won that I'm about to do after I jump off this call was also from an agent. So, they provide you with a good steady stream of usually higher paying work. I mean, just the other day I read for a Domino's ad that paid like $37,000. Um, so, you know, you typically are going to get the upper echelon of work from an agent. But like I said, don't rely on just your agents to get you the work. Go out and get it yourself. You have to these days. It's not 30 years ago when you could just sit back by the phone and wait for your agent to call and, say, go down to the studio and record your audition and then go home and wait again and then go back and record the job. That's all done. You have to go out and get it yourself. So you've got to wear all the hats. But agents are fine, and you can have as many as you want, as long as they're not competing territories. Go out and get them because that's just more ways for you to get opportunities to audition. All right, guys. Thank you so much for being here. I hope you have a fantastic weekend. I've got a lot of DIY projects lined up for the weekend, as I mentioned earlier. I've got a lot of things to do, and we're screening the documentary tomorrow night. So lots of stuff going on. But I'll see you back here on Monday, and I've got a special one for you on Monday. I know I said the other day that I don't really do a lot of motivational kind of stuff. I don't get into the whole woo woo stuff, but I do have something very cool for you guys on Monday that I think you'll enjoy. So I'll see you on Monday morning. And like I said, have a great weekend and break a lip.